I mean, some of the research and somewhere I read in one of these books that said kids enter kindergarten very creative. And over the course of their high school and college career, that creativity is lost or at least blunted. And so what we're doing, and my whole pilot is saying, why is this happening? To the extent that we are empowering our teachers and our kids, what can we do to change this? We agree on the goals, the 21st century learning skills that we want to learn. How do we evaluate our success? How do we know that we're graduating kids that are increasing in their skill levels of these critical skills that they need in order to compete and collaborate in our 21st century? So I believe the challenge is up to us. I believe it's possible. Is it guaranteed? I don't think so. Anybody else?
Yeah.
Christine?
So, is the pilot going to be a class? And if so, what is the
I thought he said
product or the goal, and how are you going to evaluate whether it's successful?
then he explained it.
Okay, I'm going to repeat the question. I don't know if anybody couldn't hear it. But she said, is this pilot to be a course? And how will we evaluate success or failure? And they are great questions. I'm calling it a course because I don't know what else to call it. That's part of the how. I mean, we're not responsible for the how. We're responsible for the what. The how and the when would be up to the administration. If the overall goal is to create this program that empowers teachers and students to research exactly like the Da Vinci Day. This is absolutely consistent and builds on the thought processes that these incredible people are already working on. This is just taking that same concept. What can we encourage our students and our teachers to focus on that they can feed back to us to help us do our job better? I don't know if I've answered your question, probably not, but.
So how do you, so there's no, so I don't know what the structure is, and then how do you evaluate its success if we don't know what the structure is?
Well,
and what would we vote on? Are we voting on something?
Okay.
No, Mrs. Yarley, I agree with you. Dave, this is a lot of words, a lot of citations, a lot of case studies. I still don't know what the crux of the motion's supposed to be. I honestly don't know what you're going for either. I mean, how is this going to be structured? Dr. Scheid, how do you see this? I'm with you, Mrs. Yarley. I don't get it. I don't understand how.
I could try again with what I'm proposing, but go ahead.
Well, I'm not sure I really know the answer, but I think what I hear Mr. Thompson saying is that he wants to cultivate 21st century learning skills in Pennridge. And correct me if I'm saying, and that, I'm sorry. Trying to find a venue to start with a small group. Mr. Thompson did speak to some students and some staff earlier in the week. He and I and Dr. Radigan, we have talked about professional development. I think to some degree this is about professional development and expanding what has already started at the high school in terms of one-to-one, Da Vinci Day, creativity, entrepreneurship. But I don't know that there's been a defined structure for that, but the ideas, am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of developing 21st century learning skills with our students.
Can I? Yeah, again, the what, not the how. Because, that's exactly how do we evaluate that. I've had the same question for 3 years since the pilot program in one-to-one. How do we evaluate the success of the one-to-one? I had an opportunity to go to Quakertown and to Wissahickon when we were first, because they were a couple of years ahead of us. And I went with them and I asked each of them, how are you evaluating the success of your effort here? And I basically got a deer in the headlights, a blank stare. They said, well, we don't really have a way to evaluate it yet. We think it's the right thing to do. But as far as I know, you can't use the multiple choice method of evaluating this stuff. It doesn't work. You probably need some kind of rubric that would recognize the time that you have seen creative problem solving, whatever, and it would be the opinion of the teachers, the professional that's in the classroom that's going to help you understand to what extent are we successful in what we're doing. This is meant to be a petri dish where we put some teachers in there and some kids who have a similar goal to say, what are we doing that's really right? And what are we doing that could be or should be changed? In the case of those robotics kids, is there some way that we could expand our curriculum, that we could include the opportunity for us to work on a passion, which is robotics, during my own curriculum that I'm being evaluated on? Again, there's really, I don't have.
Dave, can I ask you, is
Please.
this like an ad hoc kind of thing? Like, are they going to meet after school, or are we going to develop a class, like Mrs. Jordan said, a classroom? And if you made the motion, again, what would it say?
Again, it's the what, not the how. Whether it's a
What
classroom,
would your motion say?
that we choose whether or not we are going to create a pilot program with these goals and responsibilities. And we would be doing this with a specific goal of empowering these teachers and these kids to do research for us. One of the topics could be, should we have a Pennridge online virtual academy? There's all kinds of sister districts out there that are doing different things than we are. To what extent, our kids, these kids, they're here and now. It takes us years to change our curriculum and our methods.
Okay, we've heard all that, but what I would like to see is maybe the administration refine this, so we could have a motion that we can understand to vote on.
This is exactly my
I have
point.
no idea how to vote on a motion.
I understand that. The only reason I suggested putting this in the form of a motion is because if we're going to spend time at either board level or administration level, there should be some reason for it from the board. This is not just somebody's, we're going to waste time talking about something that nobody really has any interest in. And it seems to me that if we have 5 votes from board members that are saying this is worth investigating, this is a hairy little creature that nobody really knows what to do with right now. And what future does it have? Maybe none. Maybe this isn't the right vehicle or the right idea. This is one of many other possible ideas that we could have to try to help our district grow in terms of our ability to generate the skills that our kids need. And what I started to say, these kids are here in school now. It takes us years to change curriculum. And what I'm trying to figure out is, to what extent could we offer kids, maybe through virtual learning, through the ability to increase our curriculum. We had a couple kids this year that took history of Western Europe civilization, because it wasn't offered on the school. To what extent could we allow other kids, and we also had, I think, a couple took Latin. I don't know to the extent that they were successful or not. But to the extent that we could offer our kids the ability, some of our sister districts offer 20% of their, and I can't remember which, it's someplace out near Lancaster. I don't think it's Solanco, and it's not Elanco. But Elanco has, they are doing incredible things. They have, every kid in their school has a computer. He first told me Dr. Robert Hollister, he first told me 3rd to 12th grade everyone had computers. And where he got that was in 2010, he realized that $1 million out of his $38 million budget was being lost to kids that have left for virtual charters. And so he decided that he was going to, what he called fail forward. He said, I asked myself the question, are we ready to open this online virtual academy? Answer, no. Are our teachers ready? Answer, no. Are our kids ready? Well, no, but they're probably more able to handle this than the rest of us. So he said his decision was, we're going to fail. If we're going to fail, we're going to fail forward. And they didn't fail. The money that they supported their whole one-to-one program by bringing these kids back to school. I think, and I think this is right, though, I believe that we have $4.5 million a year of our money going out to charter schools. I think that was, now maybe I thought we got that in that presentation at the technology meeting, I can't remember, Dr. Stone. But that's one of the questions that we have. Should we have a virtual academy? There's certainly financial reasons for it. There are probably learning reasons for it. These are things that should be investigated and discussed. Again, maybe this pilot program is not the appropriate vehicle. But my primary, the underlying, to put this whole thing in perspective, that we at board level should be looking at the big picture. We should be looking at should Pennridge be 3 to 5 years from now? And to what extent are we creating the future for Pennridge? And I don't know if anybody else, Barry.
Yeah. To me, it sounds like we've had a lot of change in technology in the past couple of years. there's a lot of, I don't want to, I'm not as up to speed as you are with this, but what it seems to me is we're trying to direct the administration to investigate the path we should be on and make sure, you know, in a collaborative way with students, teachers, and make sure that that we don't continue to keep throwing money at something and then abruptly stop and change our minds. So I don't know if it needs to be a motion. I don't know if there's another way to direct Dr. Radigan. I don't even know if you've been speaking with them if it's something that they believe in. They seem
When I said I had 5 votes, when I asked for this time, each of you, I spoke to many of the directors, and no one said that they were ready to support a motion with specifically everything I'm suggesting or asking for. They said they would like an opportunity to discuss it. This is the only way we could think of that this could be put out and discussed. So I'm up here, take whatever shots you want me, that's fine. I welcome the opportunity because I believe really strongly in this stuff. And to the extent that I'm all out of left field, please help me. Help me see the light. Christine?
Does it seem like maybe it should just be a goal as the
Yes,
board
ma'am.
creates goals each year?
Yes, ma'am.
Super.
I said, think strategically as goals and policy and goals are the specific, to the extent that we're into the how, I'm above my pay grade on the board. We are not responsible for the how. That's your job. Suzette?
I just, you know, in listening to all this, I understand what you're saying and you know, to some extent, but I think the confusion too for me is that we're talking on kind of 2 different topics here. We started about, on one hand, with 21st century learning, and then you went into what your proposal of this pilot is, and, you know, like Christine said, is it a course? And obviously the how of it, like you said, will be the administration. I think that's where the confusion is, where it almost is presented as if it's the two. When you're talking about 21st century learning, which I agree is very important, and from a personal standpoint, my son had the opportunity to, last year as a 9th grader, be in the humanities course, which again, we're limited to a smaller group of students. You know, it's only those students that are taking that course. So in that respect, should we be looking at how do we expand that to all of our students as opposed to this small group? And then I hear you talking about, you know, your proposal, and again, it's a small group. So is the intent of this to then expand it or just
Absolutely.
use that group?
No, absolutely.
Like Christine said, is it a course? Is it a, for lack of another word, is it a club at the school of teachers, students that want to participate, just to see where it will go, what may come out of it, where it could possibly take the district and the students?
Yes, what I would...
That's what I'm hearing. It's almost like 2 different topics that we're discussing, and I guess that's part of my confusion.
And I can see that. It is, there is both that, but if our overall goals are to teach, what I'm saying is the appropriate subject matter here is what we teach and how we teach it. And if our overall goal is to increase 21st century learning skills, which are collaboration, problem solving, creativity, entrepreneurship, all of the above, then how do we do this? I don't know of a way to start a pilot program, whether it's a club or I don't even care how it is. What I'm saying is this worth the district pursuing? If it isn't, then by all means, don't do it. If there's some value in it, and I don't know, that's the how. How you set it up, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. Please, no, please. I'm all the help I can get. Thank you.
We have the building blocks. I'm excited. When I listen to Mr. Thompson, I'm excited because I have learned of all the wonderful things that are already here. We have the building blocks. You see it already in the humanities. And exactly what you just said, I absolutely agree, and I know that Mr. Thompson does, is to take that. Wow, it is fantastic. We want those experiences for all of our students at Pennridge. And that, to me, and I am more more than willing to work with whomever on devising an actionable plan for that. And we, I haven't been here that long, but I already know that there's a lot of structures in here at Pennridge already. And when you talk about a cyber academy, we have some structures here already. We have 4 teachers who teach at Bridges. I mean, we already have some experience here. So I think at this point, for me anyway, in my position, is trying to see, A, what is the goal? Where are we? What do we have in place? And then have an actionable plan. And then we can measure successes along the way. And of course, we're going to have to determine what are we going to measure. These are big questions. And I know it's very big, because it is. So I think our job as administrators then is to work collectively, of course, with the community, with the staff, to say, where do we want to go and how are we going to get there?
And if I could add to that, Mr. Thompson, along those lines, I'm confident right now that a lot of the things that you're talking about are already occurring at Pennridge.
I believe so,
It's just
too.
hard to see it sometimes because the district is so large. I've been here a year and a half. I'm still trying to come to grasp with what's happening. So I'm sure as a board member, it's even harder to see that because you're not here with us day after day after day. We agree with you. Dr. Scheid and I have had this conversation, and we've met with you and Dr. Yarnell. We agree. These are all the skills that our students need, and I believe a lot of them are happening. But to answer the question I think that Mrs. Yardley asked, are you asking this to be a course? I think it's more either of a club right now to do it on a small scale, or my other suggestion would be a task force where we bring together the players that can study this and decide where do we go. I don't think a course is the right answer. That's just my opinion.
Okay, and you could well be right. The only thing I was trying to do was to empower our kids. What I see in the last year, we see liaisons to each of our committees, that we're trying to encourage a student voice. And I think that we really should encourage that. One of the problems in encouraging that kind of voice is you might get it. When we have seen students come up and line up at the podium here when there's some kind of a problem and we hear it makes waves, it's uncomfortable for us. I'm trying to create some kind of a venue that would allow for communication on a more peer level that would be not as emotionally loaded as the content at board meetings, where we're under the gun to make decisions maybe without really, how many different constraints we operate under, that we just can't make decisions here, even though we'd like to at times, but we can't. The limitations of the board and how we're required to function just doesn't allow us. Dave, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
Mrs. Thompson, I just want to say thank you for your information and being here almost over 2 years, and coming from that district that you mentioned, Solanco, that we created a virtual academy because of financial and also for what you spoke about providing the content to the students, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. May I suggest that as a possibility that create a task force, but not just of us, maybe invite key people from the community,
Absolutely,
parents.
absolutely. That's why I suggested the summit 2 years ago.
By the way, I was at a conference this week, and I met a gentleman that, and I can't remember his last name. First name is Les, has a son or a daughter at Grass. He happens to be the data security manager for E+. I mean, just talking to him was like, I wish I could have just grabbed the guy, put it in my shoulder, and keep going. We need to bring him to the table.
Rich Kiker is another one. He was an ex-board member here. He's currently on the staff at Palisades in instructional learning. And Dr. Scheid knows, I guess, his wife. And so, yeah, there's a lot of resource out there that if we could draw on. That task force is a great idea.
So it's a possibility. I have a connection to my previous superintendent, Dr. Marty Hudax. Maybe he can come and have a conversation. I think that, technology is up. We are, I go around and I talk to people about our technology, and I'm proud of what we do. I'm proud of
we should be.
of the technology and what is useful. I hear, Kara and Haley talk about what they do, and it's like, wow, we create that for them.
Amen.
And they actually give the content to the students. But one thing that has been missing for me It's that cohesive piece that we're all on the same boat about what they're doing and what I'm providing to them. And
I
that
agree
can only
completely.
happen by starting with a conversation, not about a conversation about how much it's going to cost and then this whole thing. No, a conversation on how can we start creating something. And then
Before you can decide what it is going to cost, you have to decide what it is.
And yeah, thank you.
Any other questions or comments, Mr. Linden?
Well, this was my business, indirectly, not education. But it's called development, research and development. And there are people working on the answers to your questions. There are people working on it now. They're the suppliers to the school districts. They're the people who provide the information in the textbooks and other educational programs that you're presently using. They're working on the future. You don't know what they're doing, but why
Right.
don't you ask them?
Right.
They'll tell you where it is. You don't need to look inside the education system because it's already behind. You're way behind. You're lagging. One-to-one just started a few years ago and it's been around for 20 years.
Right.
And so you've got to go to the people who develop the future.
These are the experts that I'm talking
These
about.
are the experts, and
Right.
not the school system, not the other schools, but the people who are really putting their money into it. And there's only a few of them. They're the publishers. They know what's coming. You might not like the answer of the future. It might be very contrary to the present configuration of schools, because it's certainly going to be cyber. It's
No
going
doubt.
to be involved. It's got to change. It's going to change. And if you want to see what it's going to be, good. Go do it. But
You know-
don't configure it to suit what you presently do.
One thing that I learned today that was very interesting to me, Dr. Hollister of Elanco, I asked him what the computer system that he used, and he used Lenovo, IBM Lenovo. And he said that was a $450 box. I don't know if there's various different levels of the box, but compared to the $650 or higher that we're using, and you're saying that it's more rugged in its construction, then that sounds like a really positive. But Dr. Hollister recommended that he offered to help us. And he certainly is a resource. They're just in Elanco School District.
What is, I don't understand. Today's computer is obsolete tomorrow, right?
Sure.
I mean, there could be anything. Why even worry about that?
Because you have to take a position at some point. If you said you're going to wait till the next best thing, you're never going to buy anything.
You use today's product, then tomorrow you use tomorrow's product.
Right. So you have to make a choice somewhere. And maybe it's not the best choice, but you have to live with what you come up with. Anybody else?
I'm watching kids in strollers using cell phones and tablets.
I have grandchildren at 6 and 7 that are off the charts. Any other comments before we have another meeting that's going to start momentarily, the Academic Performance Committee, that was supposed to start roughly 25 minutes ago. But I don't mean to cut anybody off. If there's more discussion that we want to have, then by all means, please do. And Christine, I really, the whole business about evaluation, that's why I raised this issue of this particular Collegiate Learning Assessment Plus, because it's one of the first times I have found a test that's given that is not based on subject knowledge. It is strictly learning the higher order skills that you currently have. And could this test be adapted to, they're using it to measure the growth from freshman year in college to senior year in college. Is there something that we could do here that would start with freshman year in high school and go through the 12th grade? That we could measure how well we're doing in creating these higher order skills. And I agree with you completely, and that's one of the challenges that we face. When I ask these other school districts, how do you evaluate the success of your one-to-one? I basically got, as I said, a blank stare. No one really understood, no one knew how to do it. Somebody out there must have figured this out. Somebody else said, well, are we just going to support the one-to-one? You know, are we just going to keep doing this? How do we know we're doing the right thing? It's a valid question, according to Bill Sarnees in his article, you know, is this really positive for our kids? We think it is, and we've got some anecdotal evidence that would support that. But as from the board standpoint, do we have any evaluation that we can put our arms around that says we have factual from Viewpoint or some other resource where we collect information in the district Do we have any place that we can say, here's the results, before and after or whatever, and this is the value that we can see that's being created by the one-to-one?
What's the next step for your idea of a pilot?
What Barry said, and I don't know whether it's going to be a task force. I think if the board would say that we have to decide, and whether this is a subject of the board retreat, one of the subjects of the board retreat, what do we want? What's our vision of what we want the district to be? If we're going to think and act strategically, it's up to us to pick what the future might look like. And should we do it in a vacuum? No, I think that we should hear what the administration has, and we should put our 2 cents in. Or 4 cents, or 1 cent, whatever the amount of money is. So that this is a team of 10. I mean, that's just including one, but obviously Dr. Radigan represents the whole administration here, and all of the talents and skills that are obviously being brought to bear for our kids' benefit in the district. And I'm asking for your input. This is exactly why I'm doing this. I don't expect to have all the answers, I don't. And I'm asking for input from the community, from the board, from the administration. We pretty well agree on what we want to accomplish. What should be changed to improve the odds on our doing it, or increase the return on our investment? That's all I'm asking. I look around at other districts, and they're doing things differently from us. To what extent? There's this book, Dr. Zhao, who spoke to us 2 years ago, catching up or leading the way? That's a really good question. For Pennridge, are we catching up or are we leading the way? And leading the way where? To what? When you're out front, the world is a wide place because you can go north, south, east, or west, and when you're trying to choose what direction you want to go, the questions are pretty hard at times. The answers are pretty hard. But somebody's got to do it. And I think that's at least partially our job as directors. Thank you. These books here,